As Carolyn Chapman and Rita King point out in their book, Differentiated Assessment Strategies, teachers can use a number of both formal and informal tools to assess student progress after instruction. Tests are a traditional form of post-assessment, but informal observation and questioning can also provide valuable information about immediate and future instructional needs of learners. For an example of assessment after learning, we travelled to Parkview Middle School in Ankeny, Iowa, and the science classroom of Julie Townsend. As you will see, Mrs. Townsend used post-assessment on the previous day to gauge student understanding of the use of microscopes. She then used that information to group students with complementary abilities for today's lesson. At the end of the video lesson, she will use exit cards, both as a post-assessment and to gather information about student interests for the next day's activity. Her use of assessment after learning helps Mrs. Townsend refine her lessons to ensure the success of all students. Now let's watch as she introduces her lesson.
All right, today the students are going to be doing an observation lab looking at pond water. And they've already investigated the abiotic factors, so they've tested for pH, dissolved oxygen, temperature, and they have looked at macroinvertebrates to find out what is good water quality. Today we're going to be building on that. They're going to be looking at pond water microorganisms, and we're going to be identifying small animals and protists. And they've just started using the microscope, so I gave them a lab on Friday. It was simply to learn how to focus a microscope, how to find out the reactions of microscopes when you move the slide. And then I evaluated that, and today they're going to be paired with a person who did really well in the lab and a person who didn't do quite so well. And so they're going to be having one person who's the expert, so to speak. And they're going to be identifying organisms and drawing them, and then when we get all done, each child is going to be creating an exit card, writing down 3 things they've learned and 1 thing they wonder. And then we're going to be composing the wonder list, and tomorrow then they're going to research that using the web. I'm going to give you a little update on the lab today. 2 things. Number 1, look at the materials list. And in the materials it says you're going to use a pipette. You can cross out dropper. We're not going to use that. And we are not going to use the slide and cover slip. Instead, you are going to use an awesome product that I found a couple years ago, and it's called a Send Slide, right here. So would you please write that down in the materials section? It's capital C-E-N, capital S-L-I-D-E. And here's how a Send Slide works. There's a little tube with a cap on it, and it has a flat side. And then I have what's called a Send Slide holder. And what you're going to do is take the Send Slide with the flat side down, makes sense, right? And you're going to slide it right inside the holder. Now, it doesn't go all the way. If you push it all the way, it breaks. Okay? So you just push it far enough so it's going to hold it in place. And what you're going to see is a world of living organisms that you've never seen before. You're going to be looking at 3 different things. And so right now I need you to turn to page 2 of your lab. On page 2 of your lab, you've got 3 rows of organisms. Can I borrow yours for a sec, Tyler? Oh, thanks. All right. Across the top row, these are all organisms that are animal-like protists. So would you please give that a label, animal-like protists? That's what we talked about yesterday.
Can I sharpen my pencil?
Sure. We are going to see in some Send Slides that I've already got prepared for you, algae. So today, all of you will draw algae. Now, luckily enough, these are still live. They have been inside these containers for a year. Last year I had students just like you who made these little Send Slides, and we had some algae, and now the algae's been growing and growing and growing. What's been allowing it to grow? It hasn't been in the pond. What's happened? What's happened here? Grant?
It's had water, sunlight, and just everything it needs to grow.
Everything it needs to grow, water and sunlight, 2 main things. I kept them in the window. Okay, so I didn't put them inside a closet. I put them in my windowsill, so they've had lots of nice sunshine. So everybody's going to be drawing one of these. And you're going to be working with a partner today. And your partner and you are going to be completing a worksheet that looks kind of like this. It's just a lab report. All you have to do is draw what you see. So every time you see a new organism, whether it's a plant-like protist, an animal-like protist, or an animal, you're going to draw it. You're going to be labeling what power you're looking at, and that brings me to another new little thing. You cannot use high power today. So you're either going to be doing it under 40x or 100x. So somewhere on your lab would you write no high power? Who can tell me why we can't use high power? It's really important. Yes?
Because of the lens and the stage, you don't have enough room to put it, and it'll break.
Yeah, it's going to hit the objective lens. You're 100% right. There's not enough room because this plastic is too fat. Okay? So common sense is going to tell you that, but don't try and force it. So you can use scanner, find it, and then go ahead and put it on low power. Now, the second part, once you get done looking at the algae, then you get to make your own slide. Send slide. And what you're going to use is a pipette. And if you look in the back of the room on the table, I've got 4 different sources. Now, Cassidy, would you go over to the cube right next to her? Okay. Inside there is the pond water that we collected when we went to Hawkeye Pond, you guys. And when you want to find some great living things, you're going to take that pipette and you're going to put it down next to the algae. See all that green algae in there? Also, if you go by the leaves that are in there, they've started decaying, and so there is a food source there. Another thing, when we're all done with the lab today, what is an important safety precaution that we need to take to make sure you don't get sick? Amy?
Wash your hands.
You're going to have to wash your hands with soap and water. You're going to know, once you look at this, it's loaded with stuff, and you don't want to get sick. There is bacteria in here. As a matter of fact, we had it tested, and it does have E. coli, and that will make you sick. So you're going to make sure you wash your hands thoroughly with soap and water today and dry them. Okay? When you're all done with your lab, you're going to raise your hand. I'm going to come and make sure you've got everything cleaned up. And then we're going to go ahead, and I'll give you permission to wash your hands, and then you're going to sit back down in your seat. Now, before we get started, we're going to practice drawing. And so I want you to take your packet right now, and we're going to turn to page 5. I've got a couple little practice places there for you. The first one is, I'm going to ask you to look at one of the Daphnia that we've got, and we're going to ask you to look up here at the television screen. This is the pond water that we got from the pond. This particular one is loaded with algae. We found a couple major nematodes today. So we've got 2 worms actually that have been living inside our little tubes for a whole year. So they've been reproducing and having a happy time in there for a whole year. All right, this is going to be algae. Go ahead and open up your textbook to page, let's see, we want 232, I believe. I want you to find the algae. And the one I'm looking for is a ball. It's the type of algae that's a circular ball, and it looks like it has little teeny green dots on it. It's the one that's the Volvox, V-O-L-V-O-X, Volvox. A Volvox is a little teeny green ball that has green dots on it. Would you please draw that one? Draw a Volvox. And while you're doing the green Volvox, I'm going to find some Daphnia here. All right, here's my little critters. All right, you see all those little guys? See them swimming around? Everybody look at the television screen. I'm going to see if I can move this one. There he is. I've got a worm in the very, very center. And do you see him? And there's also a Daphne that's coming towards the pointer. Now here's the cool thing about a Daphne, you guys. It's transparent. So you can see its heartbeat You can see its little teeny legs. They're kind of like, well, they look like legs that are coming out all over the place. It's like a monster at Halloween. It's going to be taking that algae and it's going to be sucking it into its gut. And the one thing that it likes to do is look for food. And right now he's looking for a protist. I think he just gobbled one up. There's a little teeny protist that's coming towards it. I'm going to focus it using the fine adjustment knob, and you can see how I can kind of go out, and when I move the fine adjustment knob I can see different things. Why can I see different things when I'm moving the fine adjustment knob? Different things in the water. What do you think, Gordon?
Even though they may not seem very far apart, the fine adjustment knob moves them pretty far apart for their size.
Yep, just micromillimeters, doesn't it? So the question is, what are you going to look for today? You're going to be looking for organisms that are moving in the water. Plants. Yep, look for some plant-like protists. And some plain old animals. A Daphnia is an animal. A nematode is an animal. Do you remember when we went to Hawkeye Pond looking for macroinvertebrates? We did the 30-second stare. Don't forget the 30-second stare today. Be patient. The longer you look at your pond water, the more you will find. Are you guys ready to have some fun? Yeah. Okay. Here's what we're going to do next. Do you remember on Friday when we did the lab and you looked at the letter E and you were supposed to tell that it was upside down and backwards? Well, I went through the labs and I found out those of you that did great and you got everything right 100%. And then there were some of you that had a little bit of trouble. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to pair you together, and you don't really know which one it is. So I want you to listen carefully to each other, and I want you to help each other focus. And when you're doing the lab today, I want you to find living things. That's your goal. That's goal number 1. Goal number 2, you have to tell me which kingdom it's in. The kingdoms you're going to be looking at today are going to be the protist kingdom and the animal kingdom. That's a piece of cake, right? One person in your group. So you're going to take turns. You and your lab partner are going to take turns drawing. Okay? Don't forget to put the magnification down. Questions? Take your pencil, take your packet, and let's get busy.
Should I get a lab sheet for me? Oh, it's over there.
You need a sense line. Let's have you look at this one instead. I don't know if this Perfect response, Brad. You can go ahead and put, let's see if that'll work, if that'll hold it down, because you want it to be flat so the light can go through it easily. So go ahead and try that. Does that work? You have to focus it, of course. Okay.
Slowly move the slide with the scanner.
No. We never have enough water to get in there.
Pardon me? Yeah, you just want water. You don't need any more algae, really. But if you go down into the algae and suck it up, you're going to get living organisms. You don't really need the algae right now. You're going to get some no matter what. Are you focused? Can I take a peek?
Yeah.
All right.
I just can't really do it with all my glasses, and my
That's all
glasses
right.
are like stopping it.
Oh, you've got a great big Daphnia to the left of your pointer. To the left of your pointer, great big Daphnia. You see him? Go to the top of the pointer and to the left.
50 or
we can't use high power, so we can only use 400. No, she said 440 or 100. Yeah. Scanner is 40. This is 100. Okay. Wait, no.
All right, let's see if we can find some algae here. Ooh, you got some little critters moving.
Who's it?
Oh, you have a great big. Let me see. Oh, you have an amoeba.
Really?
You have an amoeba. Oh man, I wonder if I could get him up on the big screen. You think he'll get too nervous, maybe?
Okay.
All right. It's right at the tip of the pointer. There you go. It's called a vorticella, and it's this one right there. You can go ahead and circle him. Yep, you found him.
Well, there's this other thing.
What else did you find?
There we go. Look, water. Me down at the bottom.
All right, now, here's what we're looking for. Where's the opening? It's on the left or the right?
I think it's the right.
On the right? Well, you have a snail with gills.
And that's
That's good. That's a good thing. Good thing.
Can I see the snail? Yeah, I know. Somebody help me get like a piece of like. Yeah. Didn't you get the snail? Dude, I got the snail.
We found like 6.
Oh, all right. And how many have you
1
found?
mile.
We found quite a few.
You found quite a few? Have you drawn any of them?
Yeah,
Here's what you're going to do. The materials that we just got done using, you might want to keep for reference. What does reference mean? Yeah, Jack?
Information.
Information, to help you with some vocabulary. You are going to write what's called an exit card. And that's a chance for you to kind of summarize in your brain what you've been doing, what you've learned, and then to write down any questions you might have. I've been doing this throughout the day, and it's been fascinating for me to find out what questions people have. The good news is tomorrow you will get to research those questions. So let's look at what I have up here in the whiteboard. It says write 3 things you learned in the pond water lab using the microscope. That's number 1. And number 2, what do you wonder after doing the lab today? I don't want you to copy the question. I want you to restate it. So looking at that, how can I restate the question? The first one. Kayla, what can I do?
3 things I learned in the pond water lab was.
All right. So I take out right, and I'm going to capitalize 3. 3 things I learned in the pond water lab using the microscope are, because 3 things is plural, right? So I'm going to go ahead, leave that out, and are. And then the second one, what do you wonder after doing the lab today? How do I restate that question? Jack.
After doing the lab today, I wonder.
Oh, okay. So you would start it right here. After doing the lab today, I wonder. Okay. I am going to give you 5 minutes to do this, and then we're going to share if you want to. You don't have to. Does anybody have their information ready for us to share? Anybody willing to share that? Oh, thanks, Sam. Would you go ahead and read what you wrote? Okay. And I'm going to ask you to do a really big favor for me, and that is stand up so your voice will carry all the way to the back. And today you get 2 late passes for sharing, okay?
3 things I learned from the pond water lab with microscopes
are there is living things in just like a little bit of water, how to use microscopes, and that nematode worms look really cool.
Yeah. Tell us what you wonder.
After the lab today, I wonder how many microscopic things are in big bodies of water.
Ah, I love that. Thank you. Give him a round of applause. Thanks for being brave. Is there anyone else willing to be brave? Oh, awesome. Okay, Cassidy?
I learned 3 things in the pond water lab. There is a lot of permaceium in pond water. Daphnia will feed by using the hair-like extensions on their bodies, and diatoms sparkle like jewels.
Did you see some diatoms?
Yeah.
Did you? Wow. I wish I would have seen those. And what do you wonder?
After doing the lab today, I wonder if anyone will ever drink plain pond water again, even on a dare, because of what they saw.
What do you think?
I don't think so.
I wouldn't, would you? Give her a round of applause. Thanks, Cassidy. All right.
3 things I learned in the Hawkeye Pond Water Lab using the microscope are how tiny the protists really are, what Daphnia looks like, and what copoda is.
All right.
And then after doing the lab today, I wonder how many Daphnias live in one pond.
How many do you think? A lot? Like millions, trillions? Thank you. Give her a round of applause. Thanks. All right. Who is next? Jack?
3 things I learned in the pond water lab using the microscope are, I learned that most microorganisms are transparent, there are plant-like and animal-like protists, and that many microorganisms have false legs. And after doing the lab today, I wonder what makes up the exterior of microorganisms.
Wow. All right. Thank you. Give him a round of applause. Thanks, Jack. Anybody else? Brave? For those of you who shared today, thank you so much. I know it's a little tense. Okay, so the reason for the lab. Number 1, hopefully you learned how to use a microscope better. How many of you feel you're more proficient at using that microscope? Awesome. I have to tell you this, and I may have told you before, but it warrants speaking again. When I talked to the high school biology teachers about 3 weeks ago, we had an in-service, they said, Mrs. Townsend, we have to tell you, those students that we're getting now in biology really know how to use a microscope, and it's so awesome. So you guys will know how to use a microscope really well by the time you leave 7th grade, I guarantee it. You guys did great today. You worked really hard. Be proud. I will see you tomorrow. Yep, your ticket out is my card. Thanks, Julia. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks very much, Brandon. Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks, Josh. Actually, the lesson went as I had planned it. The children were excited about looking at the pond water, and that's my number 1 goal, for them to be excited about learning and having fun, and I think they did. They also were able to document by writing down and drawing what they observed. And then the exit cards were an opportunity for me to see if they got the whole picture. Because sometimes they're just looking at that one little organism, but they don't make connections as to, oh, that organism actually lives in the pond, and that organism has to get energy from somewhere. It either has to eat something or it has to get energy from the sun. So this is a reassuring way for me to make sure that they understand what's going on in the pond. So it did accomplish my goals. And the other thing that's so much fun for me as a teacher is for them to write down what they wonder. So what we'll do now is I'll take their wonder questions and I'll post them, and then tomorrow they will be doing research on that particular question, or they can opt out and choose to just do further research on one particular organism. It'll be their choice. So it gives them more ownership of their learning, and they get excited about it. In using differentiated assessment, or instruction as I call it, and also using the formative assessment, it helps you continually be aware of what students understand and don't understand. So if I have to reteach a concept, it's better to reteach it the next day rather than wait till I'm done with the unit and then find out they don't know it. So especially for a skill-based process of using the microscope. As an instructor, I need to know that right away so I can get that corrected. And of course, as a classroom teacher, you're moving around the room, and a lot of teachers do it instinctively. It's just, in this particular case, I had used paper and pencil so that I could be exactly sure that they did understand it or they didn't understand how to use a microscope. I do believe self-evaluation, or I call it reflection, is an important part of the learning process. It helps them summarize information and to actually make those connections on what they've learned and what they already know. When they are given the time and the opportunity to reflect and to write down what they know, they do make the connections. And they amaze me every single time I do an activity that causes them to reflect. I'm impressed. They learn more than I think they do. So I guess as a teacher, it's kind of fun for me to hear what they're learning and what they still have questions about. It helps me teach as well.